Got it. Okay. So back to what I was saying. I have two podcasts. The first one came out today. Don't miss this, which is a weekly roundup of the best of what's happening in Paris each week. But I try to go beyond the Louvre and Musée d'Orsay that everyone kind of already knows about to find things that are a little bit quirky or off the beaten path, or I don't know, things that I would want to do. And then I have a second podcast called Storytime in Paris that will come out on Wednesday. And it is interviews with authors with a French connection. And I ask them questions that come from their fans and followers, and then they give us a reading from their book. And this season, we have some really wonderful, fun names I'm very excited about. And this coming Wednesday, I'll be starting a Valentine's Day special with Sabrina Mazzaro, who wrote Swiping for Prince Charming. So you can stay tuned for that. You guys want to introduce yourselves?
Yes, indeed. So my name is Annette Dalloo, and I am the host of the podcast called The Heart of You. And I did not plan it that it actually rhymes with my last name. I did not plan that at all. So just to let you know. And basically, what is the podcast about? It's about spirituality. So everything having to do with tarot readings and energy, manifesting, protecting yourself from any energies that you pick up from other people, things like that. We cover lots of topics like numerology and astrology. I interview some experts in various fields, so you can get a little taste of each subject matter. And yeah, season 2 starting on Thursday of this week. Tuesday of this week. Sorry.
What is your first topic on Tuesday?
First topic, we are covering. Actually, I don't even remember. What is it?
Soulmates and soul family.
Oh, that's right. Soulmates and soul family. I'm sorry. We're already on episode, what is it, 22 when we're recording. We're already that far ahead. So it's been a while since I recorded that one. But yeah, so we are going to be covering soulmates and soul family. We did decide to put that for Valentine's week because we figured it would be a subject matter people would love to hear about.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Lily?
Well, hi there. My name is Lily Heise, and I'm a writer and tour guide here in Paris. And I've written 2 books on looking for romance in Paris, which are funny, lively books. And I have, as an extension originally to those books, a website which is called Je t'aime me neither, which is the name of my first book. And the website explores romantic Paris with a modern twist. So again, it's not things that are typical, like going and taking selfies by the Eiffel Tower, but instead finding more offbeat ways of exploring the romantic sides of the city, because Paris is the most romantic city in the world, right? And my podcast is in line with that. My podcast is called Romancing in Paris, and each episode visits a different arrondissement of Paris and a romantic place. But you can also stay tuned for maybe traveling outside of Paris and a few excursions or a few other topics that will be coming up. But we're finishing the first round of arrondissements here in the second season of the podcast. So the next episode, which is coming out on Thursday, is on the Maison de Balzac, which is in the 16th district, and it is terribly romantic. So tune in to find out why.
Kate?
Hi, I'm Kate, and I'm the author of Paris Undressed and the host of the Paris Undressed podcast. And it's all about life, love, and lingerie in the City of Light. We go behind the scenes of the lingerie capital of the world to explore femininity and sensuality, which is just a really elegant way of saying we take a deep dive into your lingerie drawer and see what's there. I talk to influential designers and brands that are shaping our breasts and our bodies. And coming up, I think in season 2, the first episode is with Karen Harper, who is a designer in Portland, Oregon, and only uses French lace. So the episode is about why and how French lingerie doesn't actually have to be something that you wear only in Paris. So
we're going to dig into some of the different types of love that we have here in Paris, or I guess anywhere. But since everyone thinks Paris is such a romantic place, we thought we would share some of our, I don't know, horror is a strong word, but maybe more of our like cringe-worthy date stories that we've had here, the sorts of stories that would dispel this myth. And then we thought we would talk a little bit about some actual romantic stories that we've had here in Paris. And then we thought we would share our own love stories with Paris, with you. And we definitely want to hear from you guys too. So if you want to leave some comments in the chat, we can talk to you back and forth. Also, we are giving away some gifts. We've got 4 gifts on offer. One is an hour-long love reading with Annette. One is a copy of Lily's book, Je t'aime me neither. One is a copy of Kate's book, Paris Undressed. And Lily is also going to put together a romantic date guide personalized for you. If you'd like to enter to win, it's not too late. Just you get 3 entries for being here, but we need to know that you're here. So type something into the chat box. Let us know that you're here. Let us know maybe what prize you'd be most interested in. And if you have any Parisian love stories, let us know those too. Lachlan Cook says, hi, Lily. So, all right, so let's start with the ugly. Has anyone had a particularly awful or awkward romantic or non-romantic Parisian date?
I could start because I have this example of first of all a flopped pickup opportunity and then a flop date, because I was at a party. This was quite a long time ago, across town, like really the opposite end. I live in Montmartre, and it was way down in the south of the city. And the party was fun. I was chatting with this guy. He seemed interesting, and the hours go by. And I think I spent most of the time talking to him, and he's like, oh, well, maybe it was a bit late too or something. We were like, oh, well, missed the metro. He's like, oh, I have a car. I live in the north of Paris too. I don't mind driving you home. So I'm like, great. And and so we leave the party, and we go to where he thinks his car is, and his car's no longer there. His car been towed.
Oh no.
This is like, I'll try to keep it short. So I have to pay, because then he didn't have money on him. I pay for a taxi to take us to the car tow depot, and we get his car, and then he drives me home and tries to kiss me. But anyway, goodbye. And then though I had paid for the taxi, so he's like, I promise I'm going to pay you back. Let's meet up like next week. And so I'm like, okay, sure, I'll give him another chance. It wasn't really his fault. His car had been towed. So I think we're going on a date. And I show up at this restaurant that I actually know and like, and he shows up. I think he was even late. I was sitting there for a while. He shows up with 5 of his friends. And so here I'm thinking it was a date, but he had brought all his friends, or a bunch of his friends. And so it was like, okay. So, the evening was all right. We go to pay. He forgets that he owes me money.
Oh no.
I have to pay for myself. Then he wants to drive me home and try to kiss me again. So I was a bit like, 2 thumbs down.
Did you ever get your money?
Never got my money.
Did you pay for his 5 friends too?
Thank goodness I didn't. I just paid for myself. But geez, wouldn't that have been the icing on the gâteau?
Yeah,
So that still ranks as my worst date.
I'll tell you, this is not my worst date. I'll tell you my worst date after, but I'll tell you, so we have this thing called Adopt-A-Mec, which I'm sure you ladies are familiar with, but I'll explain it to people who may not know. So Adopt-A-Mec, mec translates as like guy. So Adopt-A-Mec is like adopt a guy, and it's a dating website, but it's kind of like a fun, flirty little site. So I think it's free for women, but men have to pay, and it's sort of set up like you're shopping. So you can go find men, and you can check them. You can put them in your shopping cart, and you can check them out. And it's kind of fun. And it makes you feel like and there's all kinds of winks and stuff. So it kind of feels a little bit like a video game, but kind of like a video game that you're in charge of as a woman. So that's nice. Anyway, I met this guy on there, and he was like a performance artist or a spoken word poet or something weird. I don't know. And we started chatting back and forth, and he was cute and he was smart and he was interesting. So he asks me to go for a drink. I say yes. I get there, and he is at least 20 years older than his picture. Like, his picture is this guy who late 20s, early 30s, big head of hair. The guy in front of me is easily early 50s, maybe late 50s, completely bald. Like, there's no question that this is not you can't, I don't know what he was trying to, yeah. So I was like, okay. So he had told me when we were going back and forth, I had asked him his real name, and he told me it was The Secret of the Universe, which is like a nerd joke from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, but it's a nerd joke that I know. So I said, okay, 42. And he was like, oh, you know this reference, but I have my nerdy moments too. So when we met in person, I asked him what his name was, and he said 42. And I said, I am not staying here on this date with you, with a stranger who will not tell me his name. So I was like, this is not going to give me your actual name or I'm leaving. And he did. I forget what it was. And he's like, are you going to Google me? I was like, I absolutely am going to Google you. Obviously, I'm going to Google you. But then, so whatever, the conversation was fine. But then I asked him at some point, like, why are you using that picture? That's not you anymore. And he was like, oh, everybody lies. You lied about your age. And I was like, I didn't actually. And he's like, oh, come on, you're at least 10 years younger than what you said. And I was like, oh, I'm flattered, but actually, no, like, I gave you my actual real age. And then I was like, so you actually thought there was like a 30-year difference between us? I don't know. Anyway, he didn't seem to understand. He's like, everybody lies online, so it's fine. And he didn't seem to understand why I didn't want to start a relationship with someone who was a liar and wouldn't tell me his name. Also, his poetry was weird.
Jennifer, we had talked about this ahead of time about like kind of talking about the stories that we had, the nightmare dating stories. And I had one I was going to tell, but actually in light of yours, it's along the same lines of having somebody like show up and not be anything of what they said they were going to be. Right. So it turns out, so I had been talking to this guy for, I don't know, maybe a few weeks. And this was a while ago. And he knew a lot of the same friends I had. So we had mutual friends. And I was like, okay, so this looks promising, right? So I was super busy, so I didn't have a lot of time. He goes, I'll take an hour for coffee. I don't care what you have. I'll take anything like for the next week. And I was like, all right, cool. So let's just meet for an hour for coffee. And so I got there a little bit early because I'm always perpetually early. And so I get there, I get my coffee and I'm waiting and he shows up. And not only does he not look like his photo, but he's about 5 inches shorter than what he said in his profile, which I don't really care. He was still like, I mean, it wouldn't have made a difference to me if he was the height that he was, or, it wouldn't have made a difference, but he blatantly, I was like, how do you lie about that and think that you're not going to get caught like lying about being 5 inches shorter than you are? Right. So then he sits down and I find out that the fact that he said he had this job, he didn't have the apartment he said he had, he lives with his parents. He didn't all of these things started coming up and he just started telling me all of the truth basically. And I was like, wow, okay. And so then it was a lot to process. And this is within the first 5 to 10 minutes. And then all of a sudden he starts grabbing my hand, like he's going to hold my hand. And I kind of back my chair away and I take my hand back and he does it 3 more times. By the fourth time, technically, I pull my hand away and I said, look, clearly you're getting some sort of signals crossed here because this isn't happening. Like you lied to me about pretty much everything. And like, he's like, what are you talking about? I thought this was going really well. And I was like, I'm sorry, but how did you think this was going well? Like you basically lied to me about all this stuff. And then you start holding my hand after knowing me for 15 minutes. Like, well, who does that? Right. So the second I told him that this wasn't going to happen, he literally stopped, got up from his seat, started, like, tears were like coming in his eyes. He looked at me like I had just kicked his puppy and ran out the door. And this all transpired within 15 minutes. And I was like, what just happened? What happened? What just happened? I didn't even know what to do. I was like, do I finish my coffee? Do I leave? What do I do? Do I just sit here? Like, I don't even know. And so then, he then, blew up my phone afterwards, like, oh, I'm so sorry, blah, blah, blah. I'm in a bad place, which I totally get, totally understood. He was in a bad place and that was fine. And it was great afterwards. But like, I just said, good luck with your life. I totally get you're in a bad place. It's no problem. But like, it was by far probably the weirdest meeting I've ever had.
Wow, geez, that's something else in 15 minutes too.
I know. Well, at least it was short. At least it didn't like drag on, right? Like at least I didn't have to sit there and, be there for dinner for 2.5 hours, right?
Yeah, or if she thinks that person wasn't mentally stable. There's so much change.
Yeah. Yeah. Kate?
Well, I feel as if I'm sort of lacking in any of all this because the only boyfriend I ever had, I married. And
oh, that's so beautiful though.
And I asked him to marry me and he said no. And then he asked me to marry him. And of course the answer was yes. So this love story started before Paris, but our love story and marriage has been in Paris because we then promptly after getting married, flipped a coin and it was either heads Paris or tails San Francisco. And so that story and the love story and our entire time together has been in this most beautiful city. So I didn't have a lot of, when you don't get asked out, you don't go on dates. And so I sort of feel like I'm failing in this foursome of wonderful sort of stories,
that is far from a failure, my dear. That is a huge success story. Come on.
So, yeah, so I don't have I've sort of felt the broken heart of not having somebody share that love at the same time. And so now the joke is we don't actually celebrate the same anniversary because I'm always 2 years ahead of him. And while, we weren't going out, I just sort of thought we were working on our relationship. I fell in love the first day I saw him, and I knew we'd get married and he didn't know that. And there were a couple of girlfriends between before that could happen. So, but I do feel as if Paris and France has been our love story together, learning the language together and being here and creating our family. So, yeah.
That's adorable. and quite frankly, a good transition to go to some like more positive stories, I think.
Well, I have one other really bad love story. I don't know if we want another bad story before we go to the good stories, but sure. I have another. All right. So in like quintessential Parisian fashion, I was walking down Saint-Germain and this very attractive man stops me and he says, "Oh, you're beautiful. Can we talk?" And normally I ignored that, but he was really cute. So I was like, yeah, sure, we can talk. And he asked me for my number and I gave it to him. And we were texting a bit and he wanted to meet up for a drink. We met in a little cafe a few days later and we're talking and he was great to talk with. His English was really good. So we were just speaking in English. But his phone keeps blowing up. Like he keeps getting calls and calls and texts and calls and texts and calls. And I'm like,
no.
Do you need to get that? Like that's someone who's very insistent. And he's like, "Oh, it's my cousin." And I was like, "Your cousin is really insistent." And he's like, yeah, I'm staying with her. So we've got some problems with the keys or whatever. And I was like, okay, all right. But I can see that the texts are in English. and I don't know why you'd be speaking English to your cousin. So I was like, I'm just going to file this away, but I'm having fun, so who cares? And then I'm like, all right, I have to get home. I have a dog, which is like the best excuse for ending a date. So I was like, I have to go home and walk my dog. So he's like, oh, let me walk you to the metro. Let me walk you to the metro. So he walks me to the metro, and I'm like, okay, thanks, bye. And he's like, oh, let me just ride with you for a little while. Oh, no, that's fine. I can get home on my own. No, I'm going on the metro anyway. Let me just take you. I won't even get off. I'll just go to your station. All right, fine. We get to my station. Oh, let me just walk you to your house. Let me walk you to your house. Okay, all right. This is not as charming as you think it is. So he walks me to my apartment because I don't know how to like really kind of get out of it. Then we get to my apartment. We're downstairs. And he says, oh, I really have to go to the bathroom. And I was like, that's terrible. Let me get my dog and we'll take you back to the metro so that you can get home and pee. So I got my dog. I was like, come on, I'm not that dumb. And so I walk him back to the metro and he kisses me and he's like, you're so incredible. You should know how wonderful you are. And I was like, I know how wonderful I am. I'm good. I don't need you to tell me. This is not news. And so, okay, so I finally get rid of him. He gets on the metro. And as I'm walking home, I get a text message. And the text message is something to the effect of, please stop texting. I told you this can't continue. I'm married. And then immediately another text saying, oh, that wasn't for you. Please ignore. That was my worst.
Oh my God, that's pretty bad.
Yeah, he's in the bedroom right now. No, okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
All right, so on to romance.
Sure.
So there are so many romantic cliches. I thought it could be fun to do like a little bit of a poll to see who has experienced some of these cliches. But I have so many windows open. I'm not sure where that window is. But let's see. Let's start with some of the obvious ones. How many of us have been walking down the street and had a stranger tell us that we're charmante or ravissante or jolie or belle?
Yeah. More so, I think we were talking about this before too, like more so than in the US, like 10 times more than in the US. Like in the US, you get it maybe once in a great while, but like here, it's a regular occurrence.
Yeah.
It's kind of the point where if it doesn't happen one day, you're like, oh God, what's wrong?
I'm not charmant today.
There's also something about how we receive it here that's different, though, I believe, than in North America, and it's a bit about the language, whether or not it's more overtly what we sort of might deem as offensive in North America. And if the same language came out here, we would too, but because it's wrapped up in poetry or in the way it's said, we deem it charmant. And I find that curious that we sort of, eagerly put up our hands when I don't know if I would have done the same thing had somebody said, hey, did somebody ever give you a cat call on the,
right.
I wonder if it's different because the intention is different. Like I feel like
I don't think the intention's any different. I think the intention's the same. I just think the delivery is.
Well, no, because I think oftentimes, I don't know, I'm from New York, so maybe it's a New York thing, but I feel like oftentimes in the US, when someone says to me, oh, you're beautiful or whatever, it's because they want something. Like I'm expected to be like, oh, thank you. Okay, I should now do something for you because you find me attractive. Whereas here, I feel like they're just, yes. I mean, obviously they want something more, but they want to give you the compliment.
Yeah.
And it also depends, I think, on the level of poetry, the level of language, because I think the most over the top thing was somebody had said to me, vous êtes comme les anges. And like, when they said that to me, I was like, really? Come on. Like, I mean, it got to the point where like the Americanness in me was like, okay, that's a little much. Come on. But that's, I mean, you would never, like a person in North America would never walk up to you and say, you're such an angel. Like that would just never happen. Right. So yeah.
Yeah. And you might say, oh, come on. And then, oh, but really?
Right.
More.
Yeah. Right. Well, that's a whole other story. I did end up talking to the guy for quite some time. So yeah.
It worked. We're from heaven.
let's do some rapid fire, have these things happen. So obviously everyone, the landmarks are such a big thing. Has anyone ever kissed by the Eiffel Tower? Okay. By Notre Dame? By the Arc de Triomphe? By the Louvre? Along the Seine? Okay, what
I
about
just want to clarify that I'm putting my hand up to the same guy that this is all happening with. Okay, this might not be the case, but should my husband ever see this, that it's.
Has anyone ever been proposed to in Paris?
No.
No.
A romantic setting? No. What about a scooter ride at night?
Nope.
What about a romantic stroll along the Seine or on cobblestone streets?
Yeah, of course.
Mhm. Love luck on one of the bridges on the Pont des Arts or one of those other. We're all against that, right? We all hate it.
Yes. Well, so yes, hate it. Yes. But sort of appreciate when you see little clusters of them in surprising little places. And I know that sounds weird, but like I took a photo of one that was by a gate that is up by Sacré-Cœur. And there were just like 3 of them together and one had a little heart on it. It was red and that was like very sweet. So I like them in certain places, but like obviously weighing down an entire bridge so they have to redo the bridge. It's just not cool. That's not cool.
All right, so what about romantic stories? Lily, I'm sure that you have a romantic story or 20.
Well, most of my romantic stories end in disaster. So, but I was toying with which one to include. But one of the kind of best stories I have was I met this guy on an airplane once. Well, I've met more than one, but anyway, don't worry, we didn't visit the bathroom or anything like that. But he was coming back to Paris, and it's described in my book, the first one, Je t'aime me neither. And so, if you're interested in this little teaser, you can find the full details. But he was coming back, and we were going to go to the Loire Valley on kind of a romantic weekend. And it's like, wow, there's certain expectations, like, oh, what's it going to be like and stuff. So luckily he was coming to Paris for one evening before, then he had some business to do, and then he was coming back, and then we were going to go on the weekend. So this was like quite like kind of like a first date then. And so we did many of the cliches just mentioned. He's foreign, so it wasn't no scooter rides, but we met at a certain point and we walked across a bridge on the Seine just as the sun was setting in the distance. And then we go to a restaurant I really like that normally I just go to with friends, but it is romantic too. And we just had a really nice evening and went for a walk after. And honestly, everything was just kind of perfect because the weather was nice too, and it was just really lovely. And that was a special, just kind of everything you would want. So, when he kissed me at the end on a different bridge, so.
Annette or Kate, do you guys have romantic stories?
I'm going to defer to Kate simply because I moved here 6 months before the pandemic. So there really hasn't been a lot of time for, let's say, blossoming romance. There's been a lot of potential chatting and such, but other than that, yeah. So I'll defer to Kate.
Well, yes, I have a romantic story that's back from when I was a sophomore at university and spending my summer in Paris. And my husband now was not even yet a boyfriend, although I had singled him out. So this happened during that summer. It was my birthday in August, and I was in Paris with some girlfriends, and my girlfriend had invited me out for dinner. And with the Plan de Paris, the Plomb de Paris, I got lost and I got mugged. And everything was sort of stolen. And a policeman, gendarme, happens to show up. And from there, the gendarme, Jean-Félix, ended up writing to me. And because of this podcast, I went through my trunk and I found the postcard that he sent me back in 1984. when stamps were still 70 centimes, but it says, and this is why, right, you know, there's still something to the writing. So this is the postcard, and it says, Des fleurs de Provence pour une jolie Canadienne, en espérant bientôt de rencontrer à Paris.
Oh.
So which translates flowers from Provence for a pretty Canadian and hoping to see you soon in Paris. So I just thought that, you know, when we're talking about just, and it's written the day after and I wasn't hurt in any way for the mugging. It wasn't anything that was a story in itself, other than just sort of a little bit nervous, but just how the gallantry came through. And there's nothing, I don't know, there's just nothing like handwritten something that, you know, if I needed to do a podcast 40 years later, that I can pull out and share with everybody. But just even now reading the words again, I just realized that's just, it's beautiful and it's harmless at the same time. That is just simple. I didn't take anything offensive being called a pretty Canadian. I saw it as flattery, which I might not have. It was just short and sweet and thoughtful, you know. So that was and then my dinner happened later with my friend. So I kind of got to sort of do everything. So that sort of worked out all okay.
I'm glad you still have it. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Nice
Yeah.
story.
I found it in my journal that I'd kept all summer, you know, at the product of sort of ticket stubs, you know, every day, every page was a ticket stub of what I was sort of ticking off in Paris. And then this came along. So yeah, Jean-Félix, amitié, Jean-Félix. So
Did you ever see him again?
No, never saw him again. There's another paragraph at the bottom though, which I couldn't remember about, but it says, you know, after these, you know, since we're sharing everything, I'm now this sort of pretty Canadian from flowers. Then it says, Je souhaite que ce petit mot me fasse pardonner. So I hope this small note excuses me. And I'm like, what did he do that would have required an excuse? So maybe there's more to the story that I'm selectively not remembering. And Annette, maybe I need to explore this in one of your sessions, but I just like,
Sure.
What did he do that I don't remember that part. So for me, it obviously didn't sort of register, but I think even with that, there's just sort of something, it's the poetry of it. And you can tell too, I think just the choice of pen and the way the address is done. I don't have an easy name. It's all spelled correctly, which, you know, I pay a lot of attention to as well. And yeah, August 8th.
It's a lost art, right? I mean, people don't write actual notes anymore. You know, it's email, it's text, it's everything else. So to get like a handwritten postcard or handwritten letter is lovely, right?
Yeah. With a stamp, some flowers, and a sorry. I mean, people don't say sorry very often anymore either. It's hard to say. It's hard to say sorry. I can't tell in the light, but part of me wants to say it's a stylo plume, you know, a fountain pen as well. Which, yeah, I think it is actually, as I sort of turn it over. And that's sort of, you know, they learn how to do that here in grade school, how to write with a fountain pen. So it's, we think of it as sort of being this art, but this is just sort of something they might reach for and do.
Well, there's something very romantic about letters from France, because this is not necessarily having to do with romance, but when my sister lived here when I was very young, so she lived here for many, many years while I was still like in high school and college. And there was no email, obviously, back then. You know, this was in the early 90s. So we would exchange letters back and forth on a regular basis. That's how we caught up with each other's lives. And so I have a huge stack of that. Remember that really thin paper that they used? So it's like that really thin paper that had the red and blue stripes on it, and it all kind of folded up together to make the letter that you would send. And so like I have a whole stack of those, which to me, it's just super nostalgic. And that to me is France. That is so like quintessential, like just charming France, right? And yeah, there's just something about that that's just really romantic about just the French culture and the way things are but when you live here, it's just something normal. Like you said, it's like, you know, learning how to write with a fountain pen, that's, you know, or with a quill, that's normal. But to us, it's like, oh.
Yeah, I can tell you my most romantic story too, but I don't know if it's like too cliched or too specific, but I'll tell you my most romantic date here in Paris. It was another guy that I met on Adopt-A-Mech, a screenwriter, but because I was sort of like seeing someone else, I had told him I thought we just should be friends, and it was meant just to be like a friend thing. But he lived in LA for a while, so his English was also quite good. This was years ago, where my French was like okay, but probably not great for a relationship. And he was like, let's spend the day together. Let's just, have a good day. And I said, great. So we had decided to meet up in front of Centre Pompidou, the Pompidou Center, to go to an exhibit. But it must have been like a Monday or a Tuesday or whatever day it was, because it was closed. So then we decided to go to another museum, and that museum was also closed, and went to another museum that was also closed. And then we were like, okay, let's buy a guide, because obviously we don't know what's happening. And there wasn't a lot going on that was actually open, but there was like some weird experimental something or other in the 6th arrondissement. And so we went there, and it was like in this little space, and it was like very sensorial, lots of lights and moving projections and sounds and everything. And there was one room that I remember just made such an impression on me. It was like floor to ceiling, kind of like stream, like tinsel-y things, like a very reflective thing, but everywhere. And so when you walked through, your perception was really distorted, and you didn't always know if there was someone else there until like they were in your face, because it was very dark and there were all kinds of lights being projected. So anyway, we went there, and we were just talking and talking and talking and talking, and we walked across the Seine, we walked past Notre Dame. Eventually he says, oh, let's get a drink. We get a drink. Eventually he says, let's get dinner. We get dinner. And then it's like late. So we met, I don't know, in the afternoon or something. And now it's like the metro is closed. We got to get on the metro to go. And so we're walking to the metro. He did not try to take me on the metro home. Thank goodness he wasn't a lech. But anyway, so we get to the metro, and he says, hang on a second, I want to try something. And I was like, okay, what? And he grabs me and kisses me, and it was like fireworks. Yeah, it was so romantic and cheesy. And these people like drove by, and they were like, oh, I got a room. It was lovely. The relationship ended up being terrible, but it was a very romantic date.
Sounds great.
That sounds
And
lovely.
it's a fireworks memory,
Yeah.
even though it didn't pan out in the end, the date itself.
Yeah, it would have been better with like an ultimately better ending, but yeah, it was a great date. So in the last part of this, we thought we would share like so we've talked about this horrible love that isn't love. We've talked about this romantic idea of love, and we thought we would end with self-love and talking maybe about how we fell in love with Paris and what that showed us about ourselves. I don't know who would like to share first.
I'll go. So, I mean, I fell in love with Paris early on, as I mentioned earlier, because my sister had lived in the south of France. So the very first time I came to Paris was actually with my father. I was, I believe, 16 or 17. And we were coming here to visit my sister. So we stayed in Paris for a little while and then went down to the south, and absolutely fell in love with the city and knew that I wanted to live here at some point. And then, of course, my sister continues to live here in France. So I spend a lot of time here, and thus creating more of a bond with the French culture and with Paris itself. And so I moved here July 4th, 2019, which is interesting given Independence Day, but for the United States that I left the country. But so I moved here, and it was magic. It was everything that I had wanted. I had been wanting to move here for so long. And yes, of course, there were difficulties, as there always are when you move to a different country. When, especially with Paris, there are, a lot of things that are difficult, but things fell into place. And then the pandemic hit. So I was here for maybe 6 months and the pandemic hit. So here I am, and I'm in my apartment in this beautiful city that I fell in love with decades ago, and I can't go anywhere and I can't do anything. And you would think that that would have been really hard and really difficult, but it really wasn't. And it was because of that time I had to sit here in this city that I love and, reflect on me and my life and who I am and what I'm doing and all of that. That moving to Paris really allowed me to really see who I really am, to really work on myself, and quite frankly, to fall in love with me. So I fell in love with Paris, and she gave me the love for myself. So that to me is like kind of the best love story, is the ability to thank a city for giving you such a beautiful gift. So thank you, Paris.
I love that.
Oh, that's great. Okay, I could go next. So I decided to do something a little different for this because I thought I'd read, because it's summed up fairly nicely and in a funny way. I'll read just a little excerpt from my first book, Je t'aime neither, which came out like almost 10 years ago. So it's a little bit older, but it talks about how I ended up in France, but in kind of a funny way. So I'll just read a short excerpt from it. And it's near the beginning of the book. So it says, I was convinced that the stork must have downed one glass of rosé too many on that hot August night when he delivered me. Instead of gently setting me down in an elegant Parisian apartment with carefully polished parquet floors, molded ceilings, and large French windows overlooking the Seine, and why not throw in the Eiffel Tower too, I got plunked down on an old farm in the middle of nowhere, rural Canada. I couldn't have been further from my true home. Bohemian cafes and tree-lined boulevards have been swapped with rolling fields and endless forests. Baguettes and camemberts were eclipsed by fresh corn on the cob and cheddar cheese. Nevertheless, my Frenchness began manifesting itself at a young age. At 5, I held dainty tea parties with my French poupée. At 9, I ended up enrolled in the very first French immersion program in my tiny country town. I often ask myself if it started up just for me. At 12, I dressed up as a fancy lady from Paris for Halloween. At 16, a psychic prophetically foretold me living and finding love in a faraway land. Concrete proof. I thus immediately set out to find a way to Europe and managed to get myself there on a student exchange. Well, I ended up in Italy instead of France, but I was getting close and was teased by a 1-week class trip to Paris with my Italian school. I was in a state of je t'aime bliss. At university, I finally succeeded in living in Paris, once again on a semester abroad. Though I can't say we seriously studied anything besides French oenology and the best way to flirt with the cute Argentinian boys in our residence. I was truly in seventh heaven, in perfect paradis. I knew I'd found my rightful home and would one day be je t'aiming there forever after. So that's a little bit of a little teaser. And so I've been living in Paris now for over 20 years. And so kind of becoming an adult here is a different sort of experience in finding myself and having gone through various professions and various, kind of life challenges and a lot of fun. I find that just through there, I've kind of, entered this adulthood and become who I am thanks to the city. And I think that, in a way, it was destiny that brought me here in a kind of these gradual stages. And I now travel quite a lot. And I don't like winter, and I usually go away for a couple of months in winter, but I'm always happy to return back home to Paris.
Beautiful.
Lovely.
I think my love story with Paris, it was not, so my father lived here when I was growing up, and for some reason that made it so that I came here and visited. I went to school in the summers, and for some reason that made it so I never wanted to live here. Like, I was not enamored. I was not an early Francophile. I thought if I ever lived abroad, it would never be here. So I'm surprised. I've been here for 11 years now, so it just sort of happened. But I think so I ended up back here 12 years ago, just sort of by chance. I wasn't supposed to come here, but my plans, the short version is my plans got kind of messed up. So I thought, okay, I'll come to Paris. And I just found it. I mean, I was here in May or June. The weather was perfect. It was just the most beautiful place I'd ever been. And I found myself writing and writing and writing and writing. I had so many ideas for things to make. And there's something about, I mean, this is not a revelation. I'm not the first person to think this, but there's something about Paris that really lends itself to creativity. And I found, like, I'm very comfortable here making things. I think in the US, oftentimes, and in a lot of the world, people focus a lot on the end result. Well, who's going to pay for this, and how much money is it going to make, and who do you know? And it's very difficult, at least for me, to make something if I have to worry about what's going to happen with it at the end. Like, I kind of just need to delve into the process of the thing and then worry about the rest of it later. And the approach to creativity here, when I tell people that I make films, for example, they always say, well, what are you working on? What's the story? How's it going? And that's so freeing for me. And I love that. So I thought I would show a clip from one of the first films that I made here. It's actually from a TV pilot that I did. It was supposed to be a series of short films. This ended up going to MIP TV and Cannes, and I won a new producer to watch for it. So this is just a short clip of the larger project. I'm going to attempt to share my screen. You tell me whether you can hear this or not. So let's see. Oh, here. Oh, I clicked the button, so you should be able to hear it. Okay, here we go.
So he gave you his number.
What is this?
That's where I'm supposed to meet him tomorrow. Oh, it's serious. Yeah, but I don't know. Tomorrow's sort of our last day together, and we were supposed to have that big celebratory dinner. Just go ahead. We'll have dinner at night. Go with him during the day, and it's no big deal.
So you think that I should go?
Do you want to go?
Kind of.
I think you should go.
I don't even know if he's gonna show up.
Oh, he will.
I doubt it.
Of course he will. I bet I can even guess what will happen.
What?
He'll take you for a drink in a cute little cafe.
Okay.
You'll drink, you'll chat, and then he'll take you for a walk to show you some of his favorite places, to show you around Paris. Then mysteriously, you'll end up in front of his apartment. You'll go up, but it'll almost be your own idea. And then you'll sleep with him.
What? I will not.
Oh, you will.
No. Wait. No, I really won't. I won't even drink. I won't even shave my legs.
Oh, okay. You will.
I will not.
Hey.
Hey. No.
Non, c'est juste pour la bise.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. We don't do that in America, so.
Ah, okay.
I was like, wow.
Tu parles français?
Sorry.
You speak French?
Not really, but I can try.
No problem. I'm gonna
okay?
speak in English.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay, cool, thanks.
Did you find easily?
The
Here?
Yeah. Yeah, I found it. Okay, well, I had the thing.
You have it.
Yeah.
You have it as a souvenir?
Yeah, as a souvenir, yeah.
You understand souvenir?
Yeah, well, in English,
It's the same
it's
word.
souvenir, yeah.
Okay.
Same. Well, I'm just...
So you really like Paris then?
I know it's really cheesy, but
No, it's
I
nice.
like it, and
I like
really-
it.
I like you.
I really like it.
Thank you.
So you want to take a café with me?
Coffee,
With-
yeah,
yes.
that would be great. That would be really nice.
Okay, on y va?
Okay,
We go.
that's-
This way.
Was it on y va?
On y va.
On y va. That's cute.
It means let's go.
That's what it means?
Yes.
On y va. Cool. See, I'm learning something.
Just like this place.
Yeah, I like this place.
Yeah, you like it.
Yeah, super cute. It's very different from home,
That's good.
I guess.
Tell me about your home.
It's
Excusez-moi. Would you like a drink? Or maybe another café?
yeah. Another coffee. That's okay. I'll do
Ok.
that.
On va prendre deux cafés s'il vous plaît. Merci.
It's gonna make me really jittery.
Quoi? What is this jittery?
Jittery. It's like jittery. It's like when you drink too much coffee and then afterwards you're like,
Ah, c'est comme agité.
it's gomme agité. It's really long.
Agité.
Agité.
A, J, O.
A little clip for you.
I love that. That's so great.
I want to know what happens.
Well, and the series, all the stories are true stories. So they're all real things that really happened. And then at the end of the episode, I tell you what happened in real life. And the story, I mean, if anyone, I've had producers attached and then it's fallen through and then attached and then fallen through and then attached and fallen through. So if there are any producers watching that want to make a TV pilot, I have 10 episodes written and 1 filmed.
Nice. Amazing.
So your love story, Kate?
My love story. I'm still swooning at the cafe. It's gotten hot in here. I just did this wedding ring off. That was I thought it was so much fun, that little the clip. It was it's hard to get the right mix of the energy without falling into cliche. So let me just put that between that, sort of just to make something about Paris with the 4 of us on here who now know a lot about Paris. And, and I'm not off doing laundry because I've seen or heard it do it. It's fun to capture that energy that Paris has and that newness and the excitement. So yes, if any producers are listening, that would be great. My love story. So we moved here in 1990. And so, yes, I ended up getting the guy. We flipped our coin. I made it fall heads. We moved to Paris. Everything's great, except neither of us have any jobs. And it turns out that we didn't have working papers. And the only way I could work in Paris is if I started my own company, which I did. And that company turned out to be a lingerie company, which I ran for 18 years. And then Paris Undressed is the result of watching the French culture and women and their lingerie. So I thought I would read from Paris Undressed. And unlike Lily's, I'm at this is the last chapter. So you can skip to the end now. And it's a short expert excerpt. And it's the title is Life, Love, and Lingerie, which I thought might be appropriate since you're going to see a lot of influence about lingerie in these next, 24 hours so this hopefully might give you another way of thinking about your lingerie. What began for me as a cultural and linguistic journey to live in France and learn the language turned into a delicious lingerie odyssey of self-discovery and awareness. Most of us struggle with our identity. We create stories about who we are or think we should be based on the demands and expectations placed on us by the society and culture in which we live. Too often, our inner selves are not aligned with how we express our outer selves. Lingerie, surprisingly, connects and balances both. When chosen with care and worn with intention, lingerie becomes a subtle layer of what makes you, you. It is a nurturing and responsive layer of the self that starts on the surface of the skin and radiates both inward and outward. Cultivating good lingerie habits gives you a wardrobe of beauty, but it is also an essential step towards self-confidence and self-love. At first, the wonder of French lingerie for me was that I didn't need to speak French to wear it, but I did need to learn a different kind of language, including body language, to interpret what lingerie had to offer, all the subtleties and feelings and inspiration. Language and lingerie belong together, and I feel the glow and harmony that comes from the presence of both. It turns out that Paris is the best place in the world to learn the value and promise of lingerie. The romance of love and sensuality is around every corner. You'll notice that there's a lot of kissing in Paris. Even the statues kiss. Take a walk through the Rodin Sculpture Garden and don't forget the smelling salts should you feel faint from the passion on display. There is something gripping and all-consuming in the way the French love each other and themselves. Is it wrong to love yourself too much? Not at all. According to 18th century philosopher Jean-Jacques Rousseau, there are two kinds of self-love, amour-propre and amour de soi. Amour-propre is a love for oneself that is motivated by self-interest, a narcissistic love expressed through pride and vanity. Amour de soi, on the other hand, is concerned solely with individual well-being and is motivated by a fundamental desire to feel good and care for oneself. It is natural, but must be nurtured. This is the kind of self-love that lingerie can help you build. And it's important because too often this is the kind that is overlooked or neglected. It's easy to settle into routines and patterns and wrap ourselves in a cocoon of predictability. Lingerie invites us to extend our experience beyond the familiar and into realms of sensory experience, dreams, and possibility. Learning a foreign language taught me to listen. In the process, I began to hear my body's whispers. This shift in perspective helped me understand lingerie, an area of clothing and life that once held no meaning for me. No longer daunting and abstract, small pieces of fabric prompted greater harmony and peace with my surroundings and myself. Lingerie helped define and enhance the beauty and movement my body offered and brought freedom, not judgment. Lingerie is as much about expression as it is about fashion. Wear it as a way of expressing yourself inside and out. Explore the connection between you, your body, and the world around you. Lingerie is an invitation to live and love your life out loud in any language. So that's my invitation, I think, for us all on this Valentine's Day and self-love, and yeah, an invitation to explore that.
So I want to thank everyone for having joined us and remind you that we have some gifts to give away. Annette is giving away an hour-long love reading. Lily is giving away a copy of her book, Je t'aime neither. Kate is giving away a copy of her book, Paris Undressed. And Lily is also giving away a guide to personalized romantic dates. So if you haven't yet, please make sure that you're liking and following us on social media. If you haven't commented below, so you can get your entries in, you get 3 entries for having been here. So make sure that you've commented so that we know that you were here, and we will be in touch in the next couple of days with the different winners and how to proceed forward. As I mentioned in the beginning, today is day 1, launch day of season 2 of Paris Underground Radio. The easiest way
that needs a moment, and I'm gonna do this for that, or however you do this for our second season.
Yeah, it's true. The easiest way to know what shows are coming up and what's happening is to subscribe to our newsletter. You can go to parisundergroundradio.com to sign up for the newsletter. It comes out every Sunday. It'll give you a preview of the week ahead, all of the shows that are coming with links. There's also a free bonus gift. If you sign up for the newsletter, you get a directory of all of the shows from season 1 with pictures and episode descriptions and direct links and everything. It's like having all the shows in your fingertips. So go there, do that. Let's see, my podcast, Don't Miss This, came out today about the best things that are happening in Paris this week. On Tuesday, Kate's show, Paris Undressed, about femininity, sexuality, sensuality, lingerie, will come out. Annette's show also comes out. The Heart of You is also out on Tuesday, and that show explores spirituality and guidance on your spiritual journey. And her episode this week is about soul family and soulmates. And Lily's show, Romancing in Paris, comes out on Thursday. And this first episode is about the Maison de Balzac. There's some beautiful photographs, but also a really lovely love story. And my other podcast, Storytime in Paris, will be out on Wednesday. And the first episode is featuring the writer of Swiping for Prince Charming, a little Valentine's Day interview with an author.
Amazing. And actually, I want to send Jennifer, I want to send you a tiny bit of love on Valentine's Day, our fearless leader, our producer for Paris Underground Radio. Without you, none of us would be here. So thank you.
Yeah, you're our behind the scenes love on a 24/7 basis. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
I couldn't do it without you. So thank you. Love to everyone. Happy Valentine's Day. Keep in touch with us. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Vive l'amour.